Good morning, everyone. I'm Lyndall Stout, and we have a great show lined up for you today on SUNUP. We're diving into how recent policy in Washington, D.C. will impact taxes for those involved in agriculture. And the staple of summer, the beloved watermelon, and why it's a bigger crop in Oklahoma than you might think. Plus, cooler temperatures brought much-needed rain to round out the month of August and head into the Labor Day weekend. Grab that fresh cup of coffee because an all-new SUNUP starts right now. We began talking this morning about taxes with our farm tax specialist, J.C. Hobbs, who's worked for Extension for a long time. We've heard a lot about the reconciliation bill, or the big beautiful bill that passed recently, and we want to kind of dive into a few topics, starting with some of those personal items and how taxes might be affected there.
Okay, so really the biggest thing that happened was the standard deduction has been retained. Now, the reason we talk about this is 2017, with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, we ended up with some major increases in the standard deduction, as well as a few other things. Well, that was supposed to sunset next year, 2026. It's been retained, so a married filing joint gets about a $26,000 standard deduction, singles about $13,000. And it originally was going to go back to about $6,500. So there's a big piece there. But what that did cost us was the personal exemption. So when the Tax Cuts Jobs Act passed, personal exemptions were eliminated, but they were supposed to come back in 2026. Now with the big beautiful bill, it's been permanently repealed, so that is now gone. So the other thing that was a big deal, we're talking about doing away with taxation on Social Security. Well, that didn't fly very well, so for seniors 65 and over, for the next, I believe, 3 years, they're going to get a $6,000 per individual, it's over $6,000, deduction or reduction, whatever you want to call it, benefit, and then that will go away, I believe, starting 2029.
Another big thing that people are keeping an eye on are estate and gift taxes.
That was a major fear,
right,
because the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, when it passed, it doubled the amount of the estate tax exemption, and currently it was about $15 million per individual for 2025, and then it was going to go back sunset to half of that beginning in 2026. And everybody was afraid of what that was going to do, because with the $15 million, that exempts most farm and ranches real quick, and with a husband and wife being able to share that, it goes up to $30 million. So that has been retained, and it has been made permanent. It will not go away. And it's going to be indexed for inflation, so it's going to keep getting larger. So small businesses, farms, individuals, husband and wife, $30 million, estate tax exempt. Not going to have to worry about that. So that is a major piece of that puzzle. And everybody was all worried it was going to revert back. A lot of questions came to me, but this big sigh of relief came about with the retention of that.
Let's talk about another thing that really affects farms and ranches in Oklahoma and obviously around the country are depreciation changes.
Right, two big ones. One of them was for the bonus depreciation, and that was supposed to go, it's been ratcheting down the amount that you're allowed. This year, when we started the year, it was at 40% of qualified purchases would be allowed as a deduction, so as a depreciation deduction above and beyond normal depreciation. And once the president was inaugurated, it went to 100%. So you could write off 100% of the purchase of qualifying assets, those assets with a useful life of 10 years or 20 years or less. You can write off 100% of that purchase price against taxable or against farm income. So all of a sudden now we got another great ability to manage taxes. And then on the other side, the Section 179, that's an expensing rule, and it works just like depreciation, except there's a little bit of a different nuance. From the standpoint, bonus depreciation offsets all income. Section 179 only offsets farm income or business income. So with the passage of the big beautiful bill, That went to 2.5 million. What that means is a farmer or any business can buy $2.5 million of assets in the current year and deduct 100% of that against their business income. But it can't create a loss. But it's only for business income, whereas bonus offsets both business and non-business income. So between the two of them, you can do a little bit of manipulation, and you can really do some tax management planning, in which farmers are probably going to need. Some of the ranches have had a great year with cattle. Others have not done so well, but for the most part, this is going to be around. Both of them are made permanent, the 100%, as well as the larger 179, and the 179 is indexed for inflation, so it'll keep getting larger in the future as well.
So this is a lot to keep track of, right? And we're only scratching the surface today.
Right.
You and Dr. Hagerman, who's on our show frequently, are going to work on some educational programming through Extension throughout the year.
Correct. Yeah, we're already talking about how do we best do this with some fact sheets, just kind of outlining the bits and pieces. And also I'm be working with tax preparers this fall, trying to educate them on the nuances of the big beautiful bill as well and how to apply those.
So it's good to talk about some of this now so we're prepared, but the real work comes at tax deadline in the spring.
The real work comes a little bit later this year. When we really start talking October, that's the best time to start doing tax planning.
Okay.
Look at where we're at, what can we do to manage our tax bite, because the idea is we don't want to minimize taxes, we want to maximize after-tax net income, and that's why tax planning is very important.
Lots of great information today and more to come, and we're glad to have you on anytime, JC, to talk more about taxes.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Mark your calendars because the 2025 Peanut and Cotton Field Day is just right around the corner. This event will be 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. on September 18th at the Caddo Research Station in Fort Cobb. Topics will include weed management, harvest aids for cotton, peanut varieties, and much more. To get involved in this event, make sure and register by September 10th. For more information, you can scan the QR code on your screen or visit our website, sunup.okstate.edu.
Hello, Oklahoma. This is Emma White, your Mesonet Agricultural Outreach Specialist, here with your weekly Mesonet Weather Report. It's been wet this past week, especially for northwest all the way to eastern Oklahoma. The rains have been great for some crops, but they were not so great if you were trying to get your fall garden planted, as those little plants, or even if still seed, may have washed away. Some lighter rain may appear in the state, particularly for western and southern Oklahoma this weekend, as this forecast for Saturday shows. But overall, if you have not yet planted the fall garden and you are still intending to, the rain conditions are expected to be better for planting early this next week than they were last week. As this example table shows from the corn in the Panhandle, with cooler temperatures this past week and even somewhat this weekend as well, growing degree days, or GDD, have not accumulated as much this past week as one might expect of a normal August week. The lower GDD has also occurred in the cotton areas of southwest Oklahoma. The lower GDD has a chance of impacting crop progress a bit, such as for cotton, soybean, and even corn. However, with last week's rains, there is now ample soil moisture across several portions of the state for the crops. This map is showing the 16-inch % plant available water across the state. Generally, you want these numbers to stay above 50%. For which most of the state now has. But the southwest and the northeast could utilize some more rain. This map is as of August 26th, and so in between then and Labor Day, at least the northeast will have received ample rain. Southwest Oklahoma, however, at this time may be left out of the decent amount of precipitation the state received this past week. Gary McManus is now up next with your state climatology report.
Thanks, Emma, and good morning, everyone. Well, like we've seen a lot of times over the past 3 or 4 months, we had a little bit of a skirmish with drought once again building across the state, and once again some very timely rains have taken care of the problem, at least for the most part. Let's just get right to the new map and I'll show you. So we still have a little bit of a moderate drought up in north central and just to the southeast of the Oklahoma City metro area and far east central Oklahoma. certainly better than what it was looking, just a couple of weeks ago as we started to see that drought build once again. We still have some abnormally dry conditions, that D0 yellow color around those moderate drought areas, signaling areas that have been flirting with drought, but hopefully we get even more rains and take care of this problem. Are you liking the October weather? Or are you really hoping that some of that summer weather comes back and you can get back in the pool? Well, it depends on your outlook, but the actual outlooks for the first week of September and a little bit beyond show increased odds of below normal temperatures, especially across the northwestern half of the state, and also increase or above normal precipitation, again, especially across the southern half of Oklahoma. So we might be in this fall-like pattern a little bit longer. Heck, we might be in it all the way up until actual fall. So, once we see these things start to change, as we get farther and farther into September, we get fewer and fewer chances for those really hot days to really persist and come back. So possibly good news for those fall weather lovers. So it's a bit early for fall, but it might be sticking around. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
We're here now with Dr. Derrell Peel, OSU Extension Livestock Marketing Specialist. And Derrell, it seems like there's been some more cattle at auctions recently. Are we seeing an early fall run of calves?
It does seem like it. If you look at the volume in Oklahoma auctions for the last several weeks, we're running 25 to 30% over a year ago. And a lot of those calves are coming in straight off the cow, unweaned calves. So I think we are seeing something of an early fall run. Calves that normally would have been marketed a couple months from now are coming in now.
So why are these calves being marketed earlier?
Yeah, I think it has all to do with the market prices. We've seen prices go up for these calves this summer, which is counter-seasonal. And so producers are moving these calves early to take advantage of the market just in case it doesn't hold through the fall.
So what does this mean for feeder cattle this fall?
Well, you only get to market these calves once, so we're changing the timing of them a little bit. I suspect what this means is that we know feeder cattle supplies are tight. By moving these calves earlier, we're getting a few more of them now, but they won't be there later. So I would expect that we won't see the normal seasonal movements of cattle this fall, and probably not the normal seasonal price pressure, especially on the calves, that we would normally see in the fall.
Yeah, and it seems like we are expecting to be getting some more rain. So that might mean more wheat pasture. What does that mean for markets?
We do have prospects for getting some wheat pasture in. That's the first step, obviously. But when you look at the economics, I think producers have to be, pretty careful, use a very sharp pencil to figure out stocker prospects. You can sell a calf right now for, say $4.50 a pound or something like that. If you put another 250 pounds of gain on them in today's market, those pounds are worth less than half of that. So the market is basically not encouraging us to devote a lot of resources to putting extra weight on cattle. So, how we're going to utilize that wheat pasture, I think every producer has to figure that out. Maybe it's going to be some heifer calves that we're finally starting to retain. Maybe we're going to use it to support the cows and calves as part of that operation. And maybe stockers will work, but I think you'd have to pencil it out pretty carefully.
Yeah. So what should producers be keeping in mind right now?
Well, I think there's a lot of nervousness right now that this market is just too good to be true and it won't last. And yet the numbers all say that we're still here. We're going to be here for a while. These are not the highest prices that we're going to see. And so we expect to go forward through the rest of this year and into next year with higher prices. So, producers are going to have a lot to think about in terms of how to take advantage of this market.
Yeah. All right. Well, it sounds like some good news, Derrell. Thanks for catching up with us.
You bet.
Recently I was speaking with a veterinarian and she commented that pink eye was bad this summer. And then she further commented that pink eye is bad every summer somewhere. And I think that's very true. There's a reason we see pink eye more in the summer than other times of the year. One is we have abundance of daylight. Daylight is damaging to epithelial tissue. So the cornea of the eye and the tissues that surround the eye can be damaged from that abundant sunlight. We also have a lot more dust and pollen, which irritates the eyes. When they reach down to graze and those tall weeds and tall grasses scratch their eyes, That again damages that eye, and we're breaking down the innate immunity, that physical barrier that prevents these animals from getting these infections. The other thing that we can have that breaks down immunity is stress. So anytime we work cattle, if we work them and we are not doing it in a proper manner, then we're going to stress those cattle, and that will also break down the immunity of the eye. Typically, the clinical signs that we're going to see with that is, if you're closely watching, you'll start to see some increase in tears. That will be followed by some redness, and then you're probably going to see some small white spot on the eye, or grayish or blue spot. As far as treatment goes, there are a variety of antibiotics that have been used for treatment. Strongly suggest that you contact your veterinarian and see what their recommendations are. When we have a cow or a calf or whoever with pink eye, we need to separate those from the herd, because there's going to be a large number of bacteria involved with that, and that can spread easily. We probably should cover that eye, because that helps protect that eye, or put them somewhere in the shade so that the sun's not bothering as much. Also, we need to have good fly control, because flies can carry the bacteria from one animal to the next, and so we want to be careful with that. As far as prevention is concerned, making sure that we meet the nutritional needs of that animal, we keep them healthy, we don't stress them. If you'd like some more information about pink eye, we have a good fact sheet that has a lot of good information. We'll put that at the SUNUP website.
Good morning, Oklahoma, and welcome to Cow-Calf Corner. Our topic this week is information asymmetry in cattle marketing. An interesting topic. What do we mean by information asymmetry? Basically, in a negotiation where one party has got a lot more or more relevant or better information than the other party, and it potentially leads to a bad outcome. We are fortunate to be joined today by Robert Hodgen, graduate of OSU, one of our graduates of distinction in our Animal and Food Sciences department. He is actually in town today to tape another interview because he's one of our college's distinguished graduates. He'll be recognized later this fall. Robert's the CEO of King Ranch. I appreciate you making time to do this.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
As we think about this topic, and Robert, I know you wear a lot of hats in your job. You are a seed stock producer, you've got calves to sell, and you have a feed yard. And so you're kind of involved in all sides of this. So I start by just asking, as a cattle feeder, when you are taking on inventory to put in the feed yard, what kind of information, what kind of genetic or documentation of genetic potential has value to you?
Mark, I would say with our cattle feeding hat on, and in our business, we're going to buy 5,000 to 10,000 head of feeder calves a week, and we're just beginning the journey to really go from working on averages to thinking about origins, thinking about sources. Today we put a low frequency ID in every calf that shows up, and those calves can get dispersed through the yard, but then we can go back and look at where they started. And so we're focused on health, we're focused on mortality. And we know that in any given pen, the value of the best calf to the value of the worst calf in that pen might be $500-600, in today's market $700 between the best and the worst calf. And so it's still in many ways a business of averages, and then you're trying to find specific producers and build relationships where you know that calf is better than average. And I think for us as cattle feeders, if we are trying to buy a calf, know its health, know its background, and then predict how it's going to feed in the feed yard and what that carcass is going to look like.
Yeah, we think long term, in you and I's lifetime. I'm quite a bit older than you, but we talk about how does a commercial cow-calf operation build that reputation, and we've talked about this for years. Well, maybe we retain ownership, maybe we retain a share of ownership through the stocker phase, through finishing. We coordinate something to get that information back, and then we have our story to tell that helps us earn that reputation. Does that have value to you?
It absolutely does. We work with a handful of producers where we know we're getting calves from a specific ranch. We've fed those cattle before. we know how they're going to feed, we know how they're going to perform on the rail, and absolutely we're willing to pay for those cattle. And you know, in our business, it's you know, correctly valuing them. We just need to know what the calf is going to do, because we make a set of assumptions, and in most cases we're making a set of assumptions off averages, unfortunately, today, and working off the averages and knowing some are better and some are worse, but where we can have that relationship with that producer, and we fed the cattle before, we know what they'll do. We're absolutely willing to, you know, as a cattle feeder, we're looking for our yardage every day. We want we want cattle in the yard. And that's you know, and then to be able to make a really high quality product after that. But knowing what the set of expectations of that cattle are makes all the difference for us as a cattle feeder. Absolutely.
Robert, I really appreciate you making the time to be here and share with us on Cow-Calf Corner. Always appreciate you guys joining us on Cow-Calf Corner, and look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks, Robert.
Thanks, Mark, for having me.
Finally today, we're talking about the favorite of summer, that is the watermelon, and how there's more of it planted in Oklahoma fields than you might think. Here's SUNUP's Curtis Hare with Dr. Tyler Mason.
As Lyndall mentioned, we're catching up with Tyler Mason, our OSU Extension vegetable specialist. And Tyler, we're talking watermelon today. You have some right here.
Yeah.
And watermelon, you know, is actually a bigger crop than most people would think in the state.
It really is. It's an economically important crop for Oklahoma. On average, an annual year, we're number 12 in the nation for watermelon production.
Wouldn't even have thought about that.
I know, and a lot of it has to do with how sandy our soils are. So they perk water really well, and watermelon is somewhat drought tolerant. And that makes it, you know, a little more manageable than some of your solanaceous crops like tomatoes or peppers, which are pretty demanding of water. And, you know, what we're looking for in the watermelon market is seedless. That's what the average customer wants. The days of producing a 25 or 35 pound watermelon, they're kind of behind us. You know, that's a little bit too big for the modern 4-person family. So we're looking for you know, anywhere between a 5 to an 8 pound seedless watermelon. And that's what we're growing here today. The cultivar is called Captivation. The other thing that you'll notice, Curtis, is that there's another crop planted among the watermelon. So when you plant a seedless watermelon crop, you need the pollen from a seeded watermelon crop. And they come up with some amazing names. So the name for the pollinizer is called Wingman.
Oh, nice.
Right, isn't that incredible?
Yeah, that's great.
So Wingman is pollinizing Captivation.
So before we kind of dive into the, you know, the seedless versus seed, and, you know, where at in the state is watermelon primarily grown? Is it kind of everywhere, since you said it's pretty drought tolerant?
Good question. There is a lot of production kind of west central in Oklahoma and south central, as well as west and south. In addition, the you know, the market gardener, which may be on 2 acres or 3 acres of productivity, it wouldn't be uncommon for them to grow watermelon too, and those would be closer to your city centers.
So let's dive right in. You said you got some examples right here.
Yeah.
So let's just walk right through it.
Sure. So, you know, one of the first questions we get is quality. How do you determine what is a good tasting melon and what is and when is it ready? There's a couple indicators that you can look at on this cut melon to see that it's ripe. One of them, if we just turn it just a hair so the viewer can see at home, is that the skin has built up epicuticular wax, so it's a little more dull. If you look at an unripe watermelon, it would be a hair more shiny. And then another key indicator is the yellow belly.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Once it gets that yellow spot, you know that it's ready.
So what about actually in the field when we're talking about
ripeness? You obviously can't cut into every watermelon to see if it's ripe. There are a couple key indicators that plant physiological maturity. The first indicator is when you walk through the field, you're looking for that dull melon. Then after that, you want to look at the tendrils. The tendrils are the grabbies of the plant. And when they turn brown, that's usually a very good indicator that it's ripe. And then if you move away from the watermelon, 2 or 3 tendrils away, if those are brown, you've got a pretty good chance that that's a ripe melon. But the best way to see if it's ripe is thumping them.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what does that entail?
You want to try one?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, great.
Okay, cool. So this is something like even I could do. So just give it a good tap.
Yeah.
Maybe harder.
A little harder. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Try this one.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's just a little bit louder and more of a thud.
More of a thud. So this one's ripe right here.
Yep. And then the other way you can tell, of course, is as we mentioned, you go in here, you can see that the tendrils are starting to turn brown.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and what's interesting about this plot right here is you're doing some really interesting research in regards to growing watermelons, right?
That's right. We received a specialty crop block grant from the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture. We're trying to understand if we can produce this crop with less water. There's a product called biochar, and it's a carbon-rich source that improves nutrient use efficiency and water use efficiency. So we're growing captivation watermelon, and then we're also growing Italian-style roasting peppers, trying to see if we can produce the same crop with less water.
So do I get to take this home with me? Because I do have a spoon in the
Absolutely,
car.
yeah.
All right, thanks,
Sounds good.
Tyler.
Thank you.
Tyler Mason, OSU Extension Vegetable Specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
That'll do it for our show this week. A reminder, you can see SUNUP anytime on our website, and also follow us on YouTube and stream us anytime at youtube.com/SUNUPTV. I'm Lyndall Stout. We wish you and your family a very safe and happy Labor Day weekend, and we'll see you next time at SUNUP.